Imagine him
I don't
singing
think
the
most
version
Aussies
of
really care, to be honest.
San Quentin, I hate every inch of you. What a great song. And the Folsom Prison Blues, exactly. Kristen, how do you feel about it?
Look, I'm going to have to break it down with you, Paul. So I don't know how it's going to impact the polls, but so he's been convicted and it wasn't a defamation case. It wasn't a harassment case.
Good point.
But Stormy Daniels has turned around and said she feels as though she's been vindicated by the guilty result. I don't understand what she feels vindicated from, because to me, it's a Stormy in a teacup.
Well said, because remember, the whole point of this, right, it wasn't did they or didn't they irrelevant, right? It wasn't was there an NDA, not illegal, right? It was all about how it was put into the books. The bookkeeper, anyway, I won't bore everyone. The bookkeeper, they didn't call him, right? They didn't call the federal elections people, so okay, we'll all see what happens. For his part, here is what Donald Trump had to say today on Fox News.
Well, look, you know, I'm fighting for the Constitution. I'm fighting for the same thing that you three. I watch you all the time, and same thing that you do. You fight for freedom. You fight for your country. These people are sick. They're sick. They're deranged. You know, I talk about the enemy on the outside and the enemy from within. So you have Russia, you have China. But if you have a smart president, you always handle him quite easily, actually. We have a lot of advantages. But the enemy from within, they are doing damage to this country.
All right, let's get back to Australia and Order 99. The fact that the government is changing it, but no, we didn't make a mistake at all. Blame every and anyone they possibly could in every way. It's all now about the Prime Minister. Andrew Clennell's reporting this morning here on Sky News was that the Prime Minister's department, and they don't do things just off on their own, well, they were doing everything they could to keep people guilty of crimes in Australia who should have been sending to New Zealand. That ended up being the policy with Direction 99. James, a dear friend of mine said, look, I get it, but I don't care, and no one cares. But I don't think that's the case. Been front page news, even in lefty media, for some time. Do you think people care, and do you think people will now care even more that the PM's fingers are even more in this pie?
Yeah, I think this will be the undoing of the Prime Minister. Billy McMahon was always known as, well, it's always been said that he was the worst Prime Minister this country has ever had. Well, I got news for Billy. His family can rest easy. There is a new leader of this country that's going to take that mantelpiece very quickly. That's the truth of the matter. People have had a gutful of the fact that we are not only putting up with people from other countries coming in here and committing heinous crimes at the expense of Australians, but now we're having to keep them here as well. It's not washing. They've just got to get rid of Direction 99. Don't rejig it. Just get rid of it. It's that easy. Run a red market through it and get it gone.
Well, in the same way, the Labor Party had to learn the lessons about boat turnbacks. They now have to learn their lesson about this, which is the system worked. It worked very well. No need to change it, but of course they do. Here is James Patterson on our air speaking about all this.
The Prime Minister should take responsibility, and the least he can do is sack his immigration minister, but he should also take personal responsibility here.
Kristen, same question. Is this significant? Is this a red line being crossed, or is this the don't care?
The buck has to stop somewhere. I think people definitely care because it's impacting our society by keeping these criminals here. If it was good enough for Australia's heartthrob's father to get deported, Dustin Martin's father to get deported back to New Zealand, I agree with James. Draw a red line through it, get rid of it.
Are you a Richmond fan? Are you a Tigers fan, and therefore? You know...
I am not.
All right,
no.
good. Just double checking. I've got one on our team, and nothing. They can't do any. Dusty's a anyway. I get it. Right. Now let's talk about Josh Frydenberg. James, again. The redistribution, and let's not bore everyone, but basically some things become a little more Liberal, a little more Green, a little more Labor. Kooyong becomes a little bit more Liberal, which Josh Frydenberg, if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I could win a rematch, my suggestion is just to him as a bloke, right? Which is stay at Goldman Sachs, earn lots of money, see what happens when it comes to the new candidate, see what happens in a couple of years' time. But what's your sense in and around whether Frydenberg should return to the Parliament?
I never got that sense from Josh, to be honest, for all the years that we worked closely with him when we had that balance of power within the Senate. Josh was always somebody that was in politics for the right reasons, wasn't about the money. So you can cross that off the list. He and Matthias Cormann, I'd have to say, were two of the best operators in that parliament. Now, Matthias was the best, Josh was the second best. what Peter Dutton lacks is somebody like a Josh Frydenberg behind the scenes that can actually pull the Liberal Party together. Josh is more moderate than what Peter Dutton is, so he has this charm and ability. He's got a very good working relationship with both sides within the Liberals and also too with the Nationals. Now, where I see a problem here is Josh becomes a distraction for Peter Dutton because there's always going to be that media speculation that Josh is only coming back for the top job because, let's face it, Josh is ambitious, of course, very good treasurer, and I think he'd be a great fallback position as Prime Minister material as well for the country. But it will act as a distraction. So these are the questions that the Liberal Party will have to face. These are the questions that Josh will have to face as well. And like you say, is it worth an extra few years on the sideline and come back later so that there are no distractions and so that Peter Dutton can actually get in there and destroy Labor at this next election?
Look, I'm going to be creative too here, Kristen, which is if he does come back, OK, cool, let's just do what the Labor Party did with Bob Hawke, which was essentially run him as the opposition leader without a seat. Why not run him as the shadow treasurer without a seat to try to take on the economic conversation, which clearly will be huge at the next election?
Well, selfishly as a Victorian, what I actually want is for him to come to state politics here in Victoria because we don't have an opposition here in Victoria. Get rid of John Pizzuto and put Josh Frydenberg in to lead a unleadable ship at the moment because, yeah, the only opposition that we have right now is David Limbrick and we actually need better opposition to Labor machine down here.
Ken Oath, I love that bloke. Love David Limbrick and love the work that he's doing in the upper house. I hope that at some point in time you get the opportunity to join him as well, my friend. All right, now, James, you think long and hard about politics, as do I, as does Kristen, of course, which is about the future and where it goes. We keep being told that the future is further to the left and there'll be no further movement towards the right, all the rest of it. Yet another giant piece of analysis comes out suggesting, pack up your bags if you're anyone but Labor or the Greens, because the future, there is no vote for you.
Yeah, the Greens are a scary concept to deal with in the mere fact that they are increasing in their vote. But I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that many Australians are disappointed with the two major parties, both Labor and the Coalition, are only sort of achieving in those 30% targets. And that's why the Greens seem to be growing in popularity. That's why other crossbench parties like One Nation as well have seen the LDP, the Katters, they've all seen considerable support over the last couple of years because there is that disappointment. And yes, they do chase that Green vote, but what people miss about the Greens is they're often hypocrites. They sit in that chamber and slag off against billionaires and millionaires, and yet for the majority of those Greens sitting in our Senate and lower house, multiple homes, they certainly don't mind renting them out at top dollar. They want open borders. They're actually very, very frightening from a communist perspective. That is the path they want to take Australia. And I think that if people open their eyes and if the media actually push back against the Greens on some of their policy, you'd actually see them break. And I think it's incumbent on the media out there. They've got to start treating the Greens as though they are a serious party because the media, for some reason, just tend to go, oh, it's just the Greens, don't worry about it. There's never any harsh questions asked of their policy.
Well, I would suggest it's because many of the people in the gallery actually vote for them, but also it's just, the idea that some of the things that have been said, the racial stuff that they say, yet Labor, oh no, we couldn't possibly put them lower than One Nation. We couldn't possibly put them last. That is where the Liberals have to go. Kristen, no doubt you would think the future is libertarianism, but I'm out of time, so I've got to ask you, what is your bold prediction for the week ahead?
Oh, it's a pretty grim prediction, Paul. So national minimum wage will get announced tomorrow. I'm predicting it's going to be between a 5% and 5.5% increase, which as a libertarian and a HR professional, I will say is going to have devastating impacts on small businesses and there will be job losses. I hope that I'm wrong, but that is unfortunately my prediction.
No, that's it. I like it. I like the nerdy predictions. I love this stuff. James, you?
Oh, mate, Giles will go nowhere again this week. He's safe as houses, mate. So Labor will continue protecting him. It's It's not their fault, remember.
Oh, it's never. It's very Trumpian of them, isn't it? Thank you, guys. Do appreciate it. We'll see you again next week. Thank you very much. Do appreciate it. None other than Kristen Abram and, of course, James Ashby. Make sure you follow them all on socials. Quick break, back with more Philip Thompson about that idiot Andrew Giles and so much more.